Chapter 26. It was Solove Gregor ended up telling the story to. She appeared shortly after Vicus and, having kissed Lux's wet cheeks, embraced Gregor. If he was not concerned about his injuries, she was. She immediately led him down to the hospital section of the palace to be treated. While the doctors cleaned and stitched his leg and tried to bring down the swelling in his nose, Gregor spilled out everything that had happened since they had parted. The journey through the rancid caves, the arrival of the spiders, Henry's attempt to kill Ripred, Boots's fever, Tick's sacrifice at the bridge, finding his dad, and the strange series of events that have fulfilled Sandwich's prophecy. When he had finished, he felt like a balloon someone had let all the air out of. He just wanted to see his dad and Boots, and then go to sleep. Solove led him first to Boots, who was in a nursery with the other sick kids. She had been bathed and changed, and while she was still warm to the touch, Dulcet promised him the illness was not serious. "We cannot cure many things still, but we can cure this. It is just a case of damp fever," she said soothingly. Gregor smoothed back Boots's curls and went on to see his dad. His father already looked better, his face relaxed in sleep. The Underlanders had not only bathed him, but they'd groomed his hair and beard. The foul rat skins had been replaced by silken garments. They'd fed him and given him a calming medicine. "And when he wakes, will he be okay?" asked Gregor. "No one who spends years with the rats can expect to be unchanged," said Solove gently. "But will his mind and body heal?" "I believe so." Gregor had to be satisfied with that. He himself would never be the same after what he'd witnessed in the Underland. He had to expect some changes in his dad, too. As he left the hospital, he heard a happy voice cry out, "Overlander!" Marith got up with him and gave him a big bear hug. Gregor was glad to see Marith was alive, although he had injuries from his recent battles. "Hey, Marith," he said, "how's it going?" "It goes darkly, as it always goes in a war. But you have brought back light to us," he said firmly. "Oh, yeah?" said Gregor. He'd pretty much forgotten that part of the prophecy. "An overland warrior, a son of the sun, may bring us back light. He may bring us back none." So he must have done it after all. Brought back light. He wasn't really sure how, but if Marith said so, all the Underlanders must believe it. "What light?" he asked. The images that filled his head were relentlessly dark. "When news of King Gorger's death reached the rats, they fell into chaos. We have driven them far back into the Deadland. Without a leader, they are in total disarray," said Marith. "Oh, good," said Gregor. "I hope it lasts." Marith took him down to his old room, the one he'd shared with Boots. He took a short bath, just to lose the smell of rotten eggs that clung to him from the dripping tunnel, and fell into bed. When he awoke, he had sensed that he'd slept a long time. For the first minute or two, he lay in drowsy security, not remembering. Then, all that had happened flashed before his eyes, and he couldn't stay in bed any longer. He took a second bath, then ate the food that had appeared in his room while he was gone. Gregor was about to go to the hospital when Luxa ran into his room. Her eyes were red for crying, but she seemed her old self. "Gregor, you must come! Hurry!" she said, grabbing his arm and pulling him after her. His first thought was that there had been an attack on the palace, but that wasn't it. "It's Ares! They mean to banish him!" gasped Luxa as the two of them sprinted down the corridors. "He did not know, Gregor! He did not know of Henry's plot any more than I!" "I know he didn't," said Gregor. They burst into a room Gregor had not yet seen. It was like a small arena. Several hundred bats and humans sat on elevated bleachers that rose up around a central stage. In the front row sat members of the Regalia Council, including Vicus and Solove. In the middle of the stage, alone and stooped, stood Ares. When Gregor and Luxa ran onto the stage, Aurora fluttered out of the bleachers to join them. "Stop!" yelled Gregor, trying to catch his breath. "You can't do this!" He didn't know all the ins and outs of banishment, but he did remember Luxa saying that no one survived living in the Underland alone for long. Maybe a rat like Ripred could, but he was extraordinary under any conditions. Everyone rose to their feet at Gregor's appearance and bowed in unison. "Welcome, warrior, and many thanks for all you have brought us," said Vicus formally. But he also gave Gregor a sad smile that felt much more personal. Yeah, you're welcome, said Gregor. What are you doing to Ares? We are about to vote on his fate, said Vicus. There has been much debate about whether he was privy to Henry's plot. He wasn't, said Gregor. Of course he wasn't, or I wouldn't be standing here. He saved me and let Henry fall when he realized what was happening. He was bonded to Henry, said a large red bat. It is difficult to believe in his innocence. What of my innocence? Asked Luxa, her voice tight. No one was nearer to Henry than myself. Will you banish me as well? An uncomfortable murmur ran through the room. Everyone knew how close the cousins had been, and yet Luxa had been the target of Henry's treachery. Even if Ares is cleared on charges of treason, there is still the issue of his breaking of the bond, said the red bat. That in itself is a cause for banishment. Even when you find out you're bonded to a really evil guy? Asked Gregor. Seems like there ought to be a special rule for that. Several members of the council began to dig through piles of old scrolls, as if hoping to find an answer to his question, but others were clearly after blood. Whether he is banished for treason or bond breakage, I care not. I just want him gone. Who among us could ever trust him again? Shouted a woman. There was an uproar in the arena. Ares seemed to hunch down even further, as if crushed by the weight of the anger against him. Gregor didn't know what to do. He couldn't stand by and watch them throw Ares out into the Deadland to fend for himself. But how could he change their minds? The red bat echoed the last words Gregor had heard clearly. Yes, who among us could ever trust him again? I could, yelled Gregor, silencing the crowd. I trust him with my life. And then he knew what he needed to do. He ran to Ares and extended his hand. The bat lifted his head in puzzlement and then understood. Oh, no, Overlander, he whispered. I am not worthy to accept. Gregor reached out and grabbed the claw on Ares' left wing with his right hand. You could hear a pin drop in the room as he spoke the words. Ares the Flyer, I bond to you. That was all he could remember of the pledge that Luxa had told him, but she was right behind him, feeding the words in a whisper. Our life and death are one, we two. In dark, in flame, in war, in strife. And the last line came to Gregor without prompting. I save you as I save my life. Some hope had come back into Ares. The warrior bonding with him was no guarantee that he would escape banishment, but it was something that could not be easily ignored. Still, he hesitated. Say it, said Gregor softly. Please, say it back. And Ares finally did, replacing his name with Gregor's own. Gregor the human, I bond to you. Our life and death are one, we two. In dark, in flame, in war, in strife, I save you as I save my life.